Right. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday to you. Happy New Year to you. Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam gaming and getting into trouble on Twitter. I am Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, your host, and joining me today is the chat. How are you all doing today? Hope you guys are having a good one. Ultronymous Dan, 16A second. Did I have that right? Talos, good to see you guys. So as you guys have noticed, obviously, I'm missing my esteemed co-host today, which it feels weird, I gotta be honest with you, because it kind of feels like my dad's not home, right? Like I could get away with anything today. We could, start drinking early. We can, start cursing at the dog. Maybe we'll talk about Adam behind his back today. That's what we're gonna do. I kid, of course. No, if you guys haven't checked it out, Adam did drop a video this morning on the RE100 Yacht Doga, and I have to say, I am feeling some serious FOMO, even though I think that so Goose, the supporter that got him the Yacht Doga, also got me the High Master Model Kotobukiya Geno Breaker. And I think I got the better of the deal. I mean, the Geno Breaker is a much larger, bigger, badder kit than the Yacht Doga. But man, Adam made that Yacht Doga look really good. So if you have not seen that review, go check it out after the stream today. I was thinking about maybe trying to do like a call-in stream today because that could be fun. But I didn't really get the tech part of it set up in time, so we're going to hold off on that for maybe another time. I would like to do a call-in show sometime because I think that'd be a lot of fun. But no, as a matter of fact, it is 2024, and I have to say, we are getting into all the same crap that we got into in 2023, and I can't wait to get into it. It's a bit of a clickbaity title, I'll be honest with you, because the truth is, even though there are a lot of things that frustrate me with, the app formerly known as the Bird app, which we'll get into, worry not. There are some cool things that, are a continuation of 2023 that I'd like to show off and get into today because we're going full Hatter today. So, in case you guys missed it, I dropped a video last week on Friday talking about extending the range of wireless LED lights. And since then, even just over the weekend, I've gotten into some really silly stuff trying to kind of expand the functionality of that. I'm going to show that stuff off to you guys today. So I hope you guys are excited to check that out. I also, I mentioned that obviously, Patreon perks are a couple days late. I apologize for that. My daughter was holed up, ill, and she then passed that on to me, which actually resulted in something kind of interesting. I had some fever dreams that I'm going to share with you guys because I think that they would make for a really cool Gundam story. So yeah, let's get. Wait, someone saw the raw time YouTubes? What? Hello. Good to see you, Rogue. Yes. So, it's up to you guys. Chat, tell me, would you rather get straight into Twitter beef drama, which I am going to fight the urge. I'm fighting the deep down urge to just go on an unhinged rant complaining about Gundam fans. But I do need to voice my opinion on these things, and I do need to just get some thoughts out because hopefully you guys will take away from it the same message that I have. That said, I have a lot of cool stuff to show you that's, like I said, I've got some cool stuff to show you. So if you guys want to see that first, and then we can get into the crazy stuff towards the end of the stream, you just let me know in the chat. Otherwise, we'll just continue on the way we've been rolling. Talos is saying all in for the unhinged rant. Yeah, it's something that Adam and I talk about on stream a lot is that inner ache for justice, right? When you see an injustice, you want it corrected, which I've mentioned before that there is a conflict that happens within the human psyche because, and this is one of those things where it's like, people, I think I saw someone on Twitter post the other day, like, if you can't tell your story without war crimes or, murder or death or conflict of that any kind, then you're not a very good writer. And it's like, what? But you have to understand that conflict is a very human thing. It's what makes humans interesting, right? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It was Alex Hormozy that said that conflict isn't necessarily the result of somebody being right or wrong. Because, for instance, like I said, Adam likes to talk about when he sees injustice, he likes to fight against it. He likes to correct it, right? Well, justice has an antonym, so to speak, that we call mercy. So Alex Hormozy talks about how justice and mercy are on two opposite sides of the spectrum, but they're both virtues that we hold up in high regard, right? We love people who are merciful. It's a Maximus from Gladiator. What made him powerful was the fact that he had beaten his opponent, and Commodus is like, oh, kill the guy, and he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show mercy to this guy. We respect that. We like mercy. Mercy's good. On the other hand, we also like justice. We like when people who have done wrong things have justice exacted upon them. We like to see retribution. And so if those two things cannot exist, then there's going to be conflict between the two. And it's not because one side's right or wrong, it's because we have two virtues that we hold in equally high esteem, despite being on opposite sides of the same spectrum. So that said, storytelling is always going to be about conflict. It might be on micro scale conflict, or it might be on macro scale conflict. It doesn't have to be about world wars, but it might be about jilted lovers, It's what makes stories interesting, right? So, that said, I think that when I have been seeing these sort of injustices visited upon Gundam fans by other Gundam fans, it makes me upset, rightfully so. It makes me feel like, man, I wish that someone would exact justice on these people. But then I usually refrain because mercy is the virtue that I hold in slightly higher regard than justice. It takes a lot for me to think that someone deserves to not get a second chance. But let's see, what What's the chat think? It's always fun hearing me rant to people. Mad Midnight Hatter. Yes, exactly. Let's get the rant out of the way. War crimes make all the topics interesting. Okay, so let's get this out of the way, because once we're done with it, I can get on to cool stuff and we can just be, excited about the rest of our day and about the rest of our year, because these are things that I'm excited to share with you guys throughout the year. Growth, education, and more Gunpla. So you might recall a couple weeks ago, there was the big hullabaloo going around on Twitter because of the Yoshiyuki Tomino interview in which he criticized the ongoing works of Disney. And rightfully so, people have been kind of disappointed with what they've seen from Disney lately. But there was a certain section of Gundam fans that thought that this meant Tomino was our guy. He's standing up to the woke mob. And I said, don't do that. First of all, that's not what he said in the interview. Second of all, just fight that urge to say that anyone is your guy, because you're going to be disappointed. I promise you. Human beings are rich and complex, and they're going to disappoint you. Trust me. We'll get to that, though. So, of course, in his New Year's message, Yoshiyuki Tomino also praised the Witch from Venus. I mean, Witch from Mercury. We'll get into that as well. No, so he, made some comments as his New Year's message. Hey, I love the direction that Witch from Mercury went. This is the direction. Not every Gundam story has to be a war story. And so what happens is you have the other side of the Gundam fan aisle is saying, no, you see, Tomino is our guy. He thinks that Witch from Mercury is great, and you guys are a bunch of chuds, and we're just going to own you all year long. And I said, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't think that Tomino's your guy, because he said something that he's probably contractually obligated to say. One of the things that I like to bring up is the fact that George Lucas is another creator on the same scale as Yoshiyuki Tomino, who, if he doesn't have something nice to say, he's just going to keep his mouth shut. And you might notice that when The Force Awakens came out, he said, everyone's going to love The Force Awakens. It's a return to the old style of Star Wars. And then Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker came out. Nothing, right? And George Lucas doesn't even have a commercial interest vested in those movies. I don't even think that Yoshiyuki Tomino has a commercial interest vested in the ongoing Gundam stories that he's not involved with, right? But if he's making an official statement, of course he's going to say that the current product is good. He kind of has to. And that is further reinforced by the fact that even other people on Twitter have had to admit that he said Witch from Venus, not Witch from Mercury. He doesn't even know the title of the story. And of course it's like, oh, poor Tomino, he's in his 80s now, he's getting things wrong. And it's like, or he just doesn't care. And what it comes down to is this weird tribalism between Gundam fans in order to push other Gundam fans away from Gundam. What I would recommend is that everyone should take a step back, and before you smash retweet, before you quote tweet someone and say, see, this is why the creator of Gundam is our guy and he didn't make Gundam for you. Let me assure you that Gundam is for everybody, not only for the people that you hate, but especially for the people that you hate. And if you find yourself trying to put the creator of a work that you like, not just necessarily Tomino, but George Lucas, whoever the case may be, if you try to put these people in a box in your stupid culture war argument, just take a step back and understand, like, wait a second, is this really doing what I think it's doing, or am I just doing this to dunk on people? Because the thing about Tomino, and what I think most people should take away from this, is that Tomino himself is the perfect example of the work that he has done, because all of Tomino's stories represent human beings as they are, not as we want them to be. And so Tomino himself is a human being, beautiful and ugly and perfect and messy and sloppy, but also wonderful in all of these magical ways. And that's ultimately what Gundam is about, and that's what Tomino is about, is that you're never going to agree with people 100% of the time. So stop trying to put people in boxes and just let everybody enjoy what they're going to enjoy. Stop trying to use official sources as a way of saying, see, you're not allowed to enjoy the things that I enjoy because I don't like you as a person. That's the crux of my argument right there. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Hopefully you guys agree. And like I said, just think twice the next time somebody says something like, oh, so and so agrees with my side of the culture war, because your culture wars are dumb, is ultimately what it comes down to. So now that I've gotten that off my chest, we can get into which, this goes to the heart of why I don't like fandoms and communities, is because there's always an exclusivity factor to it. And I've always said that a Gundam fan is a person who enjoys Gundam for what it is. That's it. The only people that I would not want in the Gundam community are people who don't like Gundam for what it is. They just want to be a part of the community, and then they would want to turn Gundam into something it isn't. It's like, it just, whatever's there, if you like it, cool. If you don't like it, also cool. There's plenty of other Gundam around, which I think we've talked about that on several streams now. But that's where I'm at. Had to lay it out there. Hopefully there are some people that I respect, some people that I no longer respect, and people that, could stand to hear that have heard that message. But that is it. I will not comment on it any further. That said, I have some exciting stuff to show you guys. So let me hop into the screen share view here, because I want to show you what I've been sort of tinkering with this past week. So as you guys know, I made that video about these little wireless induction LED units, which are pretty awesome. Like I said, this one is a 5-volt ring, and as you can see, powers an LED unit wirelessly. Now we have also found a way to install LEDs, say like in the foot of a Gunpla. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to show this on camera because of how close it is. But basically, we've got our LED is installed in the head, and then I ran wires down the body, down to the length of the foot. And I wonder if you can actually see yeah, there it is. So do you see the induction coil there tucked behind the foot? It's pretty awesome, the way that it just kind of hangs down there. And I think that this ring is a little small. It's not generating quite as much voltage, but it does light up the mono eye for us. So that said, I was like, well, let's see if we can push the boundaries, right? Because you know me, I'm not satisfied with just another plain LED light. So at the end of the video, obviously, I showed that you can wire up 2 LED lights. But what about these little doodads? These are those little bar filament lights. You might have seen me use them in the past for miniature lightsabers or beam sabers, for tiny minifigures and stuff like that. So I was thinking to myself, well, can we do the same thing with this? Well, as it turns out, sort of. It's a qualified yes. Excuse me. So what's interesting, and I'm going to give you an idiot's electronic lesson because I don't necessarily understand the way that these things work, but suffice to say, sometimes this is going to work and sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, you can see that the light is not firing currently. Now, why that is because there's a difference between voltage and current, obviously. So voltage being the amount of extra push that a piece of electronics needs to get over the edge. Current is, of course, the flow of electricity, the speed at which the electrons are passing to their intended destination, in this case, the LED light. So this is it's a medium voltage ring, but it's got low current. And the reason is because it's having to fight the air resistance in order to have those electrons leap from the copper coil to the copper wire around the LED. So it's not that bad when it's, a small LED like this. What's interesting is that this LED requires 5 volts in order to light up. This LED bar requires only 3 volts. However, it requires much more current. And so that's why it doesn't fire when there's a lot of air resistance between the coil and the receiver. So what you have to do is move it to sort of the edge of the ring. And as you can see, what's interesting is as I move it closer to the center, I don't know if this is going to show up on camera or not, but it definitely gets dimmer when it is near the center. But then like when it's right up on the ring, you see how much brighter it gets? Like I'm touching the ring with it and it like kind of pops there. Yeah, you can see that. Cool. So, qualified, yes. Even though this particular LED requires less voltage, it requires greater current in order to stay lit. So, maybe there's a way that we can work around it. Maybe we increase the size of the coil, like the unit here, or if we use a larger coil, that we can kind of break through that air resistance. As you guys know, air is not particularly conductive. So, now that said, I do like the particular shade of color that we're getting from this. Let me see if I can showcase a little difference. I think I knocked over one of my wires. Here it is. So, just to show you guys what I'm talking about, here I've got another one of these bar lights, right? And this time I'm going to be powering it up with a coin battery, and you're going to see a massive difference in the amount of light that we get. Whoop, there we go. So that is the difference between lots of current and not so much current. His lots of current means lots of light. Little bit of current means that it lights up, but, you know, it's not going to be able to do some of the stuff that I would like it to do, which, honestly, like I said, I kind of like this dimmer light. You know, if it's definitely not as punchy on the eyes. I have to say that when I've used these LED light bars, you know, just kind of raw like this, just uncovered, they get a little bright, and I get those like burn in my eyes like a plasma TV. And so what this comes down to is, of course, I was thinking, what other applications can we use this induction LED technology for? Well, technically, these induction rings are what people use to wirelessly charge their phone. You know, you install that ring on the back of your phone, and then you can just plop it down on the charging pad, and it charges your phone. Same technology. So I'm thinking, well, what if we install like an audio unit? And then, like, you know, say you've got your little miniature piece and you land on an induction space, you have a little audio player in there that gets triggered by the induction coil, and it says, "You discovered a treasure." Something like that. I don't know. Suffice to say that it is not going to be enough electricity to power this bad boy. So, back to the drawing board on that one. So hopefully you guys think this is cool. These types of experiments, I am definitely trying to push the boundaries of what we can do with electronics in miniatures, in Gunpla, all this good stuff, because I really do, you know, I want to make these things kind of more accessible. And, you know, my next step, I think, would probably be to pick up like an Arduino or like a, you know, some kind of NFC, like near field communication. I know it sounded like I said NFT, like a near field communication device, kind of like Amiibos, and try to program those and get different effects based on that. But I know that these things seem very daunting and kind of inaccessible. So, you know, we start small and then we slowly get to the fun stuff is basically what I'm suggesting we do this year. And believe me, I've got plenty more fun stuff planned. Wow, look at that. So yeah, when you touch the coils, man, it's a huge difference in the amount of light we get compared to like that. Fun stuff. So let's see. Just want to make sure I didn't miss any good chats here. Yep, dimmer light could be, you know, kind of run down. Hey, yes, you should get a wireless charger coil for your phone and then take it apart and use it for Gunpla instead. Goku lands on coil, Fortunate Son starts playing. Yeah, that awesome. So yeah, that's the sort of Gunpla stuff that I wanted to share with you today. And yeah, I've got more little crackpot ideas where these have come from. Oh, you know what? I actually did forget to share one thing. Let me hop back into the screen share view here for a second, because I have been working on something for the patrons that I'm excited about. It involves me breaking out a couple of my old prototypes. These are some prototype dice that I had been working with, and this is pretty fascinating to me, at least. So, eagle-eyed viewers might recognize this shield design. The sword with the wings is, I think, is just a pretty cool design in general. But the shield design, I actually am going to have to go through and update, because it looks like my prototype has my old logo, or well, my current logo on it. So that's not going to be good for, obviously a game that has nothing to do with me. But these are pretty sweet dice. The idea is that, this is used to represent a 30% die, and this is used to represent a 50% die. It has 3 swords on it and 3 blanks. This has 2 shields and 4 blanks. Ooh. See, now that gives me an idea for dice that have wireless LEDs in them. Never stop thinking. Never stop being inspired by things. And on that note, excuse me, I do want to talk about being inspired by things, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm still currently ill, as you guys can hear, I'm sure. The other night I found myself having a fever dream that, and if you guys have been following me for a long time, you know that my dreams tend to be very cinematic. And so this dream in particular was one of those cinematic dreams. And so I guess it takes place a few years in the future, because my daughter was old enough to be like in public school. But here's what happened: is an invading force had taken over our country, and what had happened was they kind of came into the school. They had all the parents together. They had all the kids together. They separated all of the parents into different rooms. They took the kids to another room, holding all of us at gunpoint, right? And there was a officer that came up to us and said, here's what I want you to do: is I want you guys to develop a coded, show me your best coded message. Write a coded message for us, write the codex for the coded message on a separate sheet of paper, and we're going to use it in order to pass information back to, the motherland, and we're going to use it against you. And he's like, but do not attempt to like slink out of this, because anybody who uses like a cheap, easy to decipher code is going to be the first one shot. Your families are killed, all that terrible stuff. And so what's interesting, and this is how you know that I am a romantic at heart, is my coded message was, I was trying to send a message to my wife that said, I love you to the moon and back, but it was a double coded message in which the first codex was easy to decipher and had a totally different message. And then there was a second message that only my wife would have recognized because of some kind of shared knowledge that we both had. This is dream logic speaking, right? So like, obviously these are not things that I could actually do in real life, because if I could, then I probably wouldn't be on YouTube. I'd be working for the government or something. But that said, this is for story, okay? So that said, I had created this coded message, and I was like, here, turned in my message to the, it's written in crayon, obviously, because we're being held hostage in a school. And I turned it into the officer, and they drag me in and they say, "Is this a joke? Like, you seriously thought that we were gonna fall for this? Like, this wasn't hard to crack at all." And I said, "Well, that's because the message wasn't for you." And so then when they looked at the codex and they saw that, like, oh, this was a message for his wife, only she would be able to decipher it. The officer said to me, and it's, oh man, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it because it was so chilling, as he was like, "You must really despise your family because you think that you have given me a good code, when in fact what you have done is convince me that your wife needs to be sent back to home base, and we're going to send you to the front lines, and you are going to write coded messages for us to your wife that only she can understand. We're taking your kid hostage, and this is, your lot during the war, right?" So of course it's like, oh man, I screwed up. Like, here I was trying to be clever, trying to be cute, and like send a sweet message to my wife, thinking that, they were going to kill me and I was never going to see her again. And instead, they take her captive and probably never going to see her again. And so the dream, again, that, I have these very cinematic dreams. It like fast forwards through the movie of it, right? And of course, I'm sending messages back and forth to my wife, and there's these coded messages where it's like I'm providing some information that helps the enemy army, but I'm also trying to write coded messages to my wife. And then like I get messages back from her, but they are just coded to help the enemy. There's no like reply to the other message that I sent. And so I'm getting heartbroken, right? I'm like, oh man, like she's mad at me because I did this to us, and she's never going to forgive me, and so she's not replying to the messages that I'm trying to tell her that like I'm sorry and like let's try to escape and all this stuff. So then, you know, obviously we grow apart. The end of the movie, the climax of the movie comes from the discovery that my wife had been using a codex using my daughter's birth certificate as the coded letters, and she had been sending me messages that I didn't receive the entire time. And it's like devastating. Fade to black, roll credits. So like I said, I hope that just me regaling you with this tale of what happened in my dream is entertaining enough for you. But here I am thinking, like, this could make a really freaking good movie. Like, and then set this like in the Gundam universe, right? So say there's a couple living on Earth when the Zeons come to invade, and they pull this exact same stunt. They separate a married couple, and the couple is trying to send coded messages back and forth to each other, and then just the whole time not knowing that they never stopped caring about each other. One of those Greek tragedies. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Stop simping. Yeah, Hisaki, thank God that this did not really happen to me. No, this is this is yeah, gotta use it for something. Zack Snyder would make a great movie out of it. I don't know. He didn't do so good with that Rebel Moon, is what I've heard. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that little story. I know I enjoyed it. Like when I have these dreams, I wake up and I'm just like, that was crazy. I was very thankful, of course, that that the country had not been invaded and I wasn't forced to, pass messages. But and this goes back to like what Adam and I were talking about on the stream last week, is you really can't turn off a storyteller's impulse, right? So even when I'm trying to sleep, there's something in my brain that's like, you got to get these stories out, man. You got to start telling these stories. And I think that, I mean, this is one of those like Oscar bait movies. If it were written as like a World War II drama or something like that, obviously it would be like an Oscar nominated type film, right? It would star like Andrew Garfield as the husband character, and then like, I don't know, Florence Pugh as the wife or something like that. But I'm like tired of that type of period drama piece, right? So it's like, why not take that type of story, that compelling emotional drama, and put it in a setting like Rebel Moon, put it in a sci-fi setting, put it in a fantasy setting, something like that. Because I think that what happens with genre fiction in general is you get this like stale retelling of the same hero's journey stories over and over again, right? You get the Luke Skywalker, you get, you know, uh Frodo. And so I think, and we touched on this last week when we were talking about like the original movies that came out of the MCU, is it's like we're taking different types of stories and then putting them in the superhero genre. So what I'm suggesting is you take this type of story, this dramatic piece, and put it in the setting of Gundam. And hopefully that is getting to the heart of what Yoshiyuki Tomino was really trying to say in his New Year's message, is that maybe instead of these heroic power fantasy stories about war, what about the wartime drama stories? The ones that, you know, maybe aren't all action, but suspense, right? Like, I think The Pianist was a good example of that. The Adrian Brody movie, I think that was the title of it. Yeah. Or is it Life is Beautiful or It's a Beautiful Life? I think it's Life is Beautiful, the one with Roberto Benigni. Fantastic movie. Again, right in the feels, but it's not your typical Holocaust film. Yes, Pyro, creativity never sleeps. Well, he'll have the VOD for this, so it'll be easy for her to. Yes. Along the same lines as 0080 is what your story reminds me of. Mm-hmm. Yeah, power fantasies are fine. Like, I'm not knocking them, obviously. Like, I enjoy all of these types of fantasy and sci-fi stories where you have the hero's journey. But yeah, I think that the genres of like science fiction and fantasy tend to get a little bit pigeonholed into those realms of just being another hero story. And so I know that a lot of people make a big deal about like trying to appeal to a different audience. Like, oh, we want to make Star Wars, but we want to make Star Wars so that it doesn't appeal to just teenage boys. We want, Star Wars to appeal to everybody. And so the way that they do this is they tell the teenage boy story, but then they put a girl in it. Or they tell, they try to repackage the same hero's journey, when I think what they should do is just tell a different story within that universe. Does that make sense? I feel like I just kind of talked myself in a circle, but yeah, I mean, I think that the dream that I just described to you guys, I feel like that would appeal to a broader audience than just like the teenage boy audience that you would normally associate with something like Gundam or Star Wars. And so that's what I think is kind of missing, is that creative spark. I don't know. That's why the Star Wars extended universe was great. Yes, because you can take chances on those things. You can take chances on a novel that you can't take on a movie, like a big budget movie. Excuse me. So yeah, that's basically kind of all I had to share with you guys. Was, obviously had my thoughts about the Tomino drama, and I've got some things that I've been working on that I'm excited to present to you guys. Hopefully, I saw the mention of a merch store. Maybe not necessarily a merch store. I would like to start selling some products that I think people would actually use. I don't think people want necessarily a t-shirt with my face on them, but would you guys be interested if I were to start selling pre-wired long range LEDs, or audio units and things like that you could install with ease into your Gunpla? Because I've gotten pretty handy with a soldering iron. I'm not gonna lie. Um, yeah, I think that's the crux of it. I agree. Try new stories. To make something interesting is a risk. 100%. Corporations and risk. Nope. It's not a merch store. It's a mech store. Exactly. It's a mini mech store is what we're going for here. But yeah, it's in ultimately it's all to the same effect, right? Is whether I'm talking about gaming, whether I'm talking about storytelling, whether I'm talking about miniatures or Gunpla, my goal is and will forever be to hopefully inspire you guys to get outside of your comfort zone and do things that involve a little bit of risk. Experiment, cut up your Gundams, set fire to your miniatures, stick an LED in their butt and see what happens. um, but yeah, and hopefully I can help provide sort of items and trinkets and tools that will help you do that safely and effectively. So just upcoming on the docket, things that I'm trying to experiment with, and so far mixed results, but things like you working with expanding urethane foam. This has been something that I commented on previously, and I might have only mentioned it to patrons, but I'll share with you guys here today. Is you know I was inspired by the idea of like soft vinyl figures for for a multitude of reasons, but of course, like, soft vinyl isn't really soft, right? It's like Funko Pops. So I was like, man, it would be cool if we had something that was truly soft, something like your squishy stress balls, things like that. And like, what could you do with this type of material? And so, for instance, like, they make those soft vinyl versions of the dummy balloons from Char's Counterattack. Those are okay, they're fine, like, but how much cooler would it be if they were actually, like, kinda squishy and had that balloon-like texture? Something worth looking into. So, this is something that I've been playing around with. I've been trying to, of course, 3D print some master molds that I can cast these urethane, models in. Obviously, I've got a little SD chunky Zaku here. This one has a few flaws in it that make it not suitable for molding, but I might actually use this. I'm just going to go in and doctor it up with some clay because, at the end of the day, it's going to be a prototype anyway. The first attempt was that I tried to 3D print the mold itself. So instead of 3D printing a figure and then making a silicone mold, I 3D printed a resin 2-part mold that had registration marks and all this good stuff, sealed it together. I mixed up my urethane foam, sealed that up, tried to cast it, and as it turns out, funny thing about resin and urethane foam is you need a lot more than just a little bit of mold release in the middle. And so this is probably like, God, I don't even want to think about it. It's like $12 worth of resin in this 2-part mold that I made that are now permanently fused together. I went in there with a hammer and chisel, with a crowbar, with all kinds of different tools to try and separate these things, and I ended up just breaking the molds. So, yeah, that's why we're going with this guy. The idea is that, I'll 3D print the masters, cast them in silicone, and then actually make the molds using the urethane foam. But let's see. Oh, Dirty Diggler, good to see you, bud. Didn't know you were in the chat. You would be interested in a set of Hatter water slides. Wow. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because that's one of the other things that we've been working on. So here is the first sheet of Midnight Hatter water slide decals. We've got a couple of different versions of my logo, along with the Katakana logo that has been extremely popular on Discord. And I've got it printed on two different sheets. One of them is for clear decals. The other one is for white. The next sort of big investment that I'd like to make that would hopefully improve the decal game, and I recommend this to anybody, is one of those Cricut printers, or laser cutter, because I'm terrible with a hobby knife, as you guys know. My fingers are a map of the injuries that I've sustained between soldering and cutting. So my goal is to take some of these decal sheets that I've been making lately and laser cut them so that we're not having to worry about, for the opaque water slides, you really do have to cut like right up against the line, otherwise you're going to get that ugly white border on it. But I'm capable of designing the mat for that, the same way that I design the SVG for the decal itself. So if I just run that through the Cricut and have it cut, then you get perfect laser cut decals every time. That is the next step. So thank you, Diggs. I hear you, and I'm working on it. Let's see, what else did I miss in chat? Sorry, I've been going off on these unhinged rants, and I keep missing some really good stuff from you guys. So, the idea of having softest effect bases. Yeah, soft effect bases, like, especially if you were to, have, like, whether it's like a crater or, like, even just, like, buildings, right? They make, like, these plastic 1/44th scale buildings, but, like, imagine if this was made out of urethane foam and you could, like, actually take chunks of it out. And it wouldn't just be hollow on the inside. You'd actually have some material in there to work with. That would be kind of cool. It would be great for like snow terrain or desert terrain, that type of stuff. Smoke from thrusters. Oh yeah, that would have been even better. Stress ball HLV. Could you cast a sheet of paper before you? Could you get a sheet of paper before you cast it? I don't know if that would work. Don't know. Yes, I'm glad that you guys dig these decals. I'm a big fan of them. So, and I finally found a decal paper that I really like. I have experimented with some other decal papers in the past that were less than satisfactory. Nice thing about these guys is that they come in 8.5 by 11. Hit me up on Discord after the stream, and I will put a link to the new decal paper that I'm using. But unfortunately, it is LaserJet, not inkjet, so you'll need a laser printer to print them. Because I took it off. What? I need to get a new nozzle for 3D printer. Oh, yeah. You absolutely do. Oh, sheet of paper in the mold as a divider. Well, you wouldn't want to do that, right? Because then it would be like the paper would be cast in the mold. No. So I did do a bit of mold release, but I didn't do it between the entire... I should have sprayed the entire mold. I only sprayed where the figure was. And so what's interesting is the parts that I've managed to break off, the figure is like awesome and intact in there. It's like you get a little bit of the toe, and I was like, oh man, that's exactly the texture I was going for. Like, just typical Hatter idiocy. But that's what I'm here for, is for, let me make the mistakes so that you don't have to, and I will document them. But yeah, what else have we been talking about? There was another idea that I had that hopefully will, speaking of mech store, uh, and again, I really do want to, have like an online store where I can make these things for you guys. So a couple of years ago, I tried to recycle my runners by melting them down using acetone and putting them inside of a silicone mold. And like, just like with my last video on the LEDs, where it's like the number one comment was like, can we make the LEDs go farther? Like, how big of a radius does it cover? And it's like, all right. The number one comment I got on that is like, well, why didn't you use a heat gun? Why don't you use heat instead of chemicals? Well, I have a heat gun, and that's our next step. So, yeah, as soon as the weather clears up here, I'm going to be recording a video. I've got my silicone molds ready. I've got a garage full of Gunpla runners that I'm going to cut up into small bits, and we're going to try and test out melting down some of these runners, because obviously it's something that Bandai's capable of doing, right? They make the EcoPla line of Gunpla, which are awesome for people that are going to be painting their kits anyway. Like, it doesn't make sense to buy a pre-colored kit. If you're going to paint it, you can save money by buying the EcoPla version. And now the way that they do it is they actually have like deposit, like trash cans in Japan, where you can just go and take, you take your excess runners and throw them in, and those get shipped back to the factory and melted down. So it made me a little depressed that we don't have something like that in the US. And I was like, well, maybe I can offer an alternative to that. And so my idea, fingers crossed, is that if this works, if I do refine a process which I can cast replacement parts, or even things like action bases. Action bases would be an ideal application of this, because they are open molds. I don't have to do like a 2-part mold. I can do like an open mold, throw a whole bunch of plastic pellets in, melt them down. They take the form of the action base in question. And like, I give you guys like 15-20% off if you send me a handful of runners. Then at least we've got like a little bit of a recycling program going on. I just need to make sure that the fumes are not going to kill me. So I've got my respirator ready, and hopefully I don't break any EPA codes in my backyard. Yep, no one does hatter idiocy like me. Well, see, there you go. Maybe that's what we'll have to do, is instead of using runners, I will just melt an entire Gunpla into the mold and call it good. So we've got that. And then of course the next step, this is another project that I've been working on for a long time, that I think I've made some headway in. And hopefully it's something I'm going to be able to share with you guys. Is I've been doing more research on magnetic levitation, which, it's one of those things that you always think about when you're a kid, because you see that magnets repel each other, and you're like, oh, if I just get a big enough magnet and a big enough magnet, and I put them so that they're repelling each other, it's going to make it float. But it's like, there's so many other variables and factors going on that make the magnet on top want to flip, or they will just repel each other off of the platform that you're trying to build. So there are different ways of doing it, one of which uses like these little guys, the flat magnets here. And what you can do is, by connecting them end to end like this, instead of top and bottom, you can create like a checkerboard pattern of positive and negative. And what that does is it means that, like, no matter what side you put the top magnet on, it's always going to be like, if it tries to push itself over, it's going to meet another repelling force. But that is an imperfect solution as well, because eventually it will get pushed to the end and flip over. So I did do a little bit of research, and it turns out that there are non-ferrous materials such as bismuth. Yes, indeed, the stuff in Pepto-Bismol, the stuff that coats your stomach and prevents you from pooping your pants, is a magnetic repellent. So it's like the opposite of iron. So if you have a magnet and you put it between two pieces of bismuth, it's going to be repelled from each side. So I recently watched a video where someone created a sculpture in which they had a pretty big rare earth magnet and 2 ingots of bismuth surrounding it. And then they had a massive magnet, like, suspended about 6 inches above it. And so if I can create a big enough platform, use big enough ingots of bismuth, and then, of course, magnet, and then a magnet inside of a Gunpla, we can create a floating Gunpla, levitating Gunpla. That is definitely my pipe dream project of this year, because the other ones I think are a little bit more plausible. This one seems a little extreme, and so we're going to fool around with it. We're going to see what we do. Let's see, what kind of molds you're going to use, because rubber won't stand the heat. Well, silicone molds, depending on the cure, so like a tin cure mold would do well. Platinum cure silicone, I have not had any issues with the heat, but tin cure, you can actually, I mean, you can even cast pewter in that, but pewter has a pretty low melting point. I'm gonna have to see which has a higher melting point, pewter and bismuth or plastic. I'm betting that even though those are very soft metals, I think that the melting point's probably higher on those. Waiting for me to reenact the ending of 8th MS Team Live. Yeah, I'll probably lose my leg doing it too. Yeah, if I let my wife pick one, she's gonna pick the Geno Breaker. Any New Year's resolutions for this year? Well, I think I've shared them all with you. I think that's my list of resolutions. Is here are the various hobby experiments that I'm going to get into, and my resolution is to at least try them all and probably fail at 2 or 3 of them. But yeah, what about you guys? Any New Year's resolutions? Any that you've already failed? Because, like I said, my New Year's resolution was to not get involved in any more Gundam Twitter drama, and of course, well, here we are. Yeah. Also, I'm very excited to share this much with you, is that, like, I have managed to actually incorporate my chat into OBS now, so I can actually read the chat, and it's not like, suffice to say, my old chat window, I couldn't actually scroll, so I couldn't keep up with it. Like, what would happen is if I missed a chat, it was gone forever. Now we've got a much better chat situation going on. So Talos says to be more productive and overwork myself less at work. Work on hobbies more and stress less. Failed both. Amen. Amen to that. New Year's resolution is all the normal stuff. Lose weight and all that. Yep. we can all stand to lose a couple of pounds for sure. Especially, I think that it's one of those things, like, because we all kind of just let ourselves go at the holidays, of course you're going to want to lose weight the second the holidays are over. That's married life for you. Sometimes your crazy brother-in-law builds a death ray and chops off your leg, and you just have to deal. Yeah, that's. I have to imagine that if Guineas had survived the 8th MS team, family reunions and, like, family events would be a little weird. Like, we all have that one crazy uncle that is talking about overthrowing the government at Thanksgiving. Well, this crazy Uncle Guineas, well, he actually kind of was a war criminal. In fact, killing the scientists that made his super weapon. So he's evil on both counts. No resolutions, wing it as much as possible. Well, hey, no resolution is a resolution in itself. Build more, write more, and more custom builds. Amen to that, brother. Good luck to you. Went back to the gym at long last, write more, and a secret one. Well, it's like your birthday wish. If you tell people then it's not going to come true, which is why I'm spilling them all out to you now at the beginning of the year so that I'm under no pressure to actually uh, complete any of these things. But I have some stream projects starting not next week, but the week after. And this is the year the Kshatriya Kabliber. I don't know if that's a typo or not. And maybe the Chemthrower Leo. I don't have a crazy uncle like that. Wonder why. You and me both. I'm determined to get a 100% custom Pokemon region done this year. Wow, that's a big ask. With 150 more Pokemon. Yeah, beyond that, like, you know, all the usual stuff. I typically I gave up on resolutions a few years ago because you know, you guys have been following me long enough to know that I have a very hard time sticking with something and getting it done. Oddly enough, though, I don't have a problem refraining from something. So, like, I've always aced Lent. Like, Lent is not a problem for me. In fact, a lot of the things that I've given up for Lent over the last several years, I've just given up forever. So, you know, I'd say that I have an easier time breaking habits than making them. Let's see. Oh, Caliber, got it. Yeah, Calibur is Cabliber. Yeah, that's a good one. 20 Pokemon designs base done. Not bad. Well, then I can't wait to share with you guys my secret resolutions. But with that, I think we are coming to the end of the hour, and I think that we had fun without Adam. Honestly, we should do this stuff more often, where it's just the chat. I really do want to do that call-in show now, especially because I would love for you guys to shout me down when I start going off on my unhinged rants. Yeah, you know, yeah, I want you guys to call in and disagree with me so that I can tell you what a dummy you are. Now, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me this afternoon. Hope you guys are having a good year so far. It sounds like you guys have some pretty lofty goals ahead of you, just like I do. So get back to them. Get back to work. Excuse me. Yeah, like I said, if you haven't yet, go check out Adam's video on the Octoga. Link down in the description below. And I've got some exciting stuff to share with you guys coming out soon, so stay tuned. Until then, I guess I will see you guys tomorrow on the Gundam Explained show. Cheers, everybody. Have a good one.